fights with passion, and he inspires.
Are you ready for a war?
All right, welcome back to From 8 Arbitration. I finally got the man, the myth, the legend. I got Mr. James Henry on, and it is late. My man, it's 10 o'clock my time. And so he's all the way on the West Coast. And so he was been busy today. And so we finally have gotten together, needed to get this out of the way. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask James 5 questions from each one of the sites. I got Facebook, Reddit, Discord. And I'm going to ask 5 questions from each one. That's going to take up a lot of time because some of them are multiple questions. And so you with me, my brother?
I am. Good afternoon, everyone, or good evening.
It's good to have you on, my man. People have been waiting.
It's a pleasure and an honor.
It's it's like that the Kiss intro. You wanted the best, you got the best. Here's James Henry. So we got some interesting questions, my man.
Yes, sir.
We got some interesting questions. Again, James and I have not gone over these. Matter of fact, he probably didn't know I was going to do it this way. Facebook, Reddit, and Discord, but my people on Reddit were griping because I didn't get to them last time. Discord was griping because I didn't get to some of them. So I'm just going to do it this way. And then James, you can come back as many times as necessary, and we'll just keep answering questions. That sound all right with you, my man?
Sounds outstanding.
All right. So before we get into this, James, do you want to just tell everybody exactly who you are, what you've done? I saw the video clip where you just came from. You've been traveling around the country pretty much, and kind of told your bio a little bit. You want to do that just for a second, then we'll get into these questions?
Absolutely. For those
It's all
of you
yours.
okay, good. For those of you that do not know, I suspect that most of you do. However, I have been employed with the Postal Service since February 22nd, 1988. At that particular point in time, I ended up 6 or 7 months off into my career, becoming a shop steward. And as I became a shop steward, I have handled all sorts of responsibilities. There's been duties ranging from being a shop steward there in the city of Pomona, California, to becoming an executive board member of Branch 1100, to becoming the chairman of the executive board, and becoming a vice president of Branch 1100 and a senior vice president for 1100. And then the interim sprinkled in between there have been other duties such as letter carrier safety specialist for the Santa Ana district. Also, joint steering committee, EI, the employee involvement. And in addition to that, I became a regional administrative assistant for Region 1. And virtually any and every job that you can think of that the Postal Service and the union had to offer, I've been involved in some way, shape, form, or capacity. In the most significant one that had occurred back in 1997 and ended up being the first DRT member appointed by headquarters when it was just in the pilot stage. There were other pilot sites throughout the country, but I was one of the first, should I say, on the West Coast, a charter member. And that was a source of pride then. And I've been involved with the dispute resolution process from 1998 up until approximately a year ago. I oversaw the Santa Ana district and 8 other teams in Region 1 when I was an RAA. And I also performed the duties myself from 1998 through 1999, when at such time I had became the vice president and became a full-time officer for Branch 1100. And currently, I serve as the National Vice President of the NALC. Is there anything else you need to know as far as that, Corey?
No, sir. And I'm sure that some of these
Well,
questions.
let me finish. Oh, I'm sorry. You'll probably
Yeah,
have
no.
to edit this portion. All the while, during my career with the NLC and the Postal Service, I've been in the Marine Corps. I joined the Marine Corps, United States Marine Corps. Silver 5 for all my devil dogs out there. Joined the Marine Corps April 21, 1983. And I retired from the Marine Corps as a gunnery sergeant in April of 2009. I had 22 years of active service, not active duty incomplete, but active service, combination of active duty and active reserve, and 4 years of inactive reserves, which gave me a total time under contract of 26 years, but 22 years counts towards my retirement. And during my career, I had the opportunity to travel the world, interact, and lead Marines, both male and female, into lead both male and female Marines. And so it's something that's a source of pride of mine as well.
Well, my father is a former Marine, like I said, so I know he would appreciate that. He still has his tattoo on his left arm. What is it? The globe and anchor?
Eagle, globe, and anchor.
That's it. Yeah, he still has that on his. He's 87. He still has. I remember as a kid, thought that was the neatest thing. He told me how he tried to scrub it off one time with sandpaper when he got older. I was like, that sounds like a Marine.
Yeah, yes, most individuals don't know that I actually have a tattoo on my right arm with the eagle, globe, and anchor as well.
Yeah, that's what he still has it to this day, 87 years old, man. And
Yes.
uh, some of the time I get most emotional is like when we're in church and it's maybe one of those days they're recognizing the different branches of the military, and they'll stand up and they'll say Marines, and he'll stand up, and that always gets me, man, when he stands up as that Marine. So I've always thought that was badass.
The one thing that we often say, once a Marine, always a Marine.
That's it.
There's no ex-Marines.
That's right. And that would get you in trouble if you say that around Marines. So you're an
Absolutely.
ex-Marine, and they tend to want to whip that ass if you say that. So you learn quickly in a Marine family that you do not say that, and so
Right.
there's a lot of pride.
The one thing about what I just described to you, and that was a brief background here, is that reflects that I have been in service to my country and to my fellow citizens of the United States, in addition to my fellow brothers and sisters in the Union. And that is something that is embedded in me, that I have and hold true convictions about being in service. And that's how I see myself. And it's one of the reasons why I take so seriously my job, is that we are in service to the membership.
Well, that's right. I appreciate everything you've done for us, my brother. And so, are you ready?
I absolutely am.
All right, my man. We're gonna do 5, 5, and 5, and we're gonna call it a night. And I'm gonna go to bed. So, been a long day for me, baby. I know it has you. You've been traveling all day, but all right. The first one is from my assistant steward. Now she's a mama bear, and she's a hell of a steward. Matter of fact, she's the one that went with me when I went to the postal inspectors, and she has a lot of faith, and so I was like, I'm in good hands. But she wrote a question, and it's a multiple question, so I'm gonna break it down, and then you just answer it.
Yes, sir.
The reason The reason for made arbitration exists today was the need to educate. Would you be willing to set up a user-friendly online course that members could log into for access, to have an online database of training and access for people to be trained and equipped would be helpful, especially for those of us who cannot afford time away from family?
The direct answer to that is yes. I am a huge proponent of education. As most may know, that I currently teach the advanced Formal A and beyond class at the national level. I teach the arbitration advocacy class at the national level, and I have done and put together scores of courses and classes at the regional level and at also the local level relating to the training and the education of our members and the stewards as a whole. So absolutely, we have to meet our members where they are and have to have a program and structure that's conducive to the 21st century. Part of that is inclusive of online training, because as indicated here, everyone doesn't have the means to get to fly or travel as much as they would like to receive the training. So absolutely, that is something that I am in favor of. And as if you read my platform on the CLC website, one of the things that I had pointed out is, should I ascend eventually to the presidency of the NALC, is reestablishing the director of education. And at this particular point in time, far as education here is concerned, I have been in contact and discussion with you, Corey, relating to establishing and having education focused in on for the membership. So that is something that I am absolutely a huge fan and proponent of.
Yeah, and you and I talked a long time, James, about education, and I know that that's something that, like you say, you're a proponent of, and we've already discussed different things that we want to do nationally. I think that the 15, like I always complain about, the 15 regions are basically 15 different unions. And we've got to do something as far as making sure everybody's on the same page. Every single member needs to be educated. And that's something that you've expressed to me and something I'm excited about. And so I liked hearing you say that.
Certainly, and as you indicated, just briefly touching on what you're speaking about, having 15 regions, and there are certain things that you would think that would be pretty much so universal in the manner and how we approach a particular subject of matter. And a lot of times we end up getting different decisions from arbitrators or Step B members because of the different approach. There is something to having a unified standard structure and curriculum that everyone gets a quality education from the NLC. And that's not to say that they are not right now, but we want to make sure that whatever is the highest standard of educating our members, that we provide that to each and every member, each and every steward, each and every branch, because being successful is important as it relates to achieving our ends. Because if management thinks that it's a crapshoot or 50-50, because for whatever reason someone wasn't aware to make a particular argument or to put a file together a particular way, or just general knowledge as a whole, then we're doing the membership a disservice and we're doing ourselves a disservice. And it's important that we do have a standard.
All right, here she goes. She keeps going. Also, would you be willing to allow members to live stream or playback sessions we cannot attend? A secure link to log in if necessary.
Here's the beauty of our organization, is that it is a democratic organization. If that is the will of the membership and that passes, then that is what we will do.
All right. What are your plans to better educate members everywhere? I think we kind of just talked about that. Not everyone is on the same page, and I'd love to see a fighting NALC from the new employees on the workroom floor on up to the president. What are your plans to bring unity back to our union?
Well, the one thing is here, and you perhaps will hear me refer to both my faith and my experience in the Marine Corps throughout this interview, is that the Marine Corps preaches that you lead by example. And the one thing is here about bringing unity. And again, my pastor also used to say, to have friends, you must show yourself friendly. Now, how do those two things correlate here? Is that one, if we want to have unity, and hence the word union, is that whoever is in the leadership position, if I'm in the leadership position, I would find and bring everyone together by example, by treating the person, the first day CCA on the floor, as important as a president of a huge branch. Everyone is important. Everyone is a part of this union. And I think leading by example, by making sure that everyone feels a part of, and to that end, to some degree, is the educational aspect. The other is having functions such as things that promote unity, that will help bring our members together and to get to know one another. Those type of things here, I believe, will be beneficial in helping promote unity and making sure that if we disagree, that we can disagree without being disagreeable. Because democracy isn't just when you agree with it. So that is just a brief point that I wanted to make.
All right, now we're going to jump on Discord. I think you've been set up. And, I think there's been some people on the inner circle going after you, my man, and giving some people on Discord some stuff to ask. I'm going to do these first because I'm going to get these out of the way, because I'm a true believer in if you're going to go after me, let's go on and get it. And so this person has been talking to some people on the inner circle of the executive council, and they're feeding this person some stuff. And so we're going to get these out of the way, my man, and then we're going to get into some policy stuff. All right.
Right.
All right. And this is off of Discord. And it's about 10 questions from one individual. And they've been feeding him some stuff. So let's talk about it. It says, Mr. Henry, a business agent, doesn't name him, and a national trustee, doesn't name him, told me that you frequently fall asleep during e-board meetings. A friend in another region heard the same thing from her business agent. This was before you announced your candidacy for president or any charges were filed. Can you address these allegations? Do you have a medical condition that we as members should be aware of, such as narcolepsy? That's the first one.
Well, first and foremost, no, I do not have narcolepsy, nor do I have sleep apnea. Those of you that were at the convention and have heard that I have been falsely accused. Some accusations have been made against me that troubled me for a period of time. In addition to that, I have been encountering some personal issues that are deeply personal at home. And as such, over the last year, it has caused me to not achieve the amount of sleep that I need to achieve on a nightly basis, in addition to traveling. So it's not a complex answer nor a complex situation. The bottom line is that the issues are resolved themselves. The charges that was heard by the convention have pretty much brought that issue, as far as work is concerned, to some degree to an end. And then my home personal issues also have been addressed. And therefore, there have been times where I have been extremely exhausted. But I am ready and willing to do the job of this that I've been called to do for this membership. And it's as simple as that. I have been exhausted and have not gotten sufficient amount of rest over the last year. But those issues are resolved now.
All right, here's the next one. I'm a big believer in LCPF, and I couldn't help but notice that you give substantially less than our other national resident officers. Can you explain why that is? Do you believe politics just isn't that important?
Absolutely not. I have given what has been requested by me by headquarters previously. In addition to that, I often give when I'm at functions on a regular basis. So the amount of money in total that I give each year is not necessarily reflected in totality what's posted, because I attend a lot of functions that I contribute to as well. Anyone that knows me knows that I have always been heavily involved in politics. I have never in my entire career passed up an opportunity when it was presented to me or was available to precinct walk, to phone bank during any given period of time. I certainly believe that it is an important element of our union to support those who support us. So the bottom line is that I believe that our political contributions are exceedingly important, and what you see is not the totality or reflect accurately of what I actually give each year.
All right, here's the next one. After Brian took office in December of 2022, 2 long-term RAAs were fired for committing the sin of running for MBA against the will of the slate. One of these 2 was from your own region, and you worked with him when you were an RAA. Why didn't you speak out at the time? Did you feel he was unqualified when you worked with him?
Absolutely not. In fact, I hold him in high regard. We are talking about Calvin Brookins. And in fact, I met with our current president, Brian Renfro, now no less than 3 times, imploring him not to fire Calvin Brookins. I also spoke with the current NBA, saying that he should remain on staff. I think that was ill-advised. Calvin had been working for the union a long time, 30 years, a long time president, and he did a wonderful job as a representative of the NALC, both locally and nationally.
All right. Some people say you were part of a push for DEI at NALC headquarters, and Lou Drass was pushed out. After Lou stepped down, he stayed on for almost a year. What was your part in this? Why didn't Lou leave immediately?
Let me preface this here. myself, since this is addressed to me about DEI, diversity, equality, and inclusion, implies that I have this job because of my race. I'm an African American. I stated at the onset of this interview that I've been working for the Postal Service since February 22nd, 1988. In less than a year of being employed, I became a shop steward and started representing my fellow letter carriers. And be quite frank with you, out of all the questions that perhaps could be asked of me, perhaps that's the most offensive. Why? Because I am not where I am because of any DEI. It's because I've worked hard and I earned to be where I am. No one has given me anything. My career has been fraught with hardship, seemingly from its inception to this very moment. And in each and every time, I have hunkered down, dust myself off, and reminded myself that I'm not in this for me, that I'm in this for the letter carriers, because I did not want what happened to me to happen to anybody else. Lou Dross, I consider a friend. Lou Dross and I worked closely with one another. He brought me in when it came to preparing and teaching the advanced Formula A and beyond class. That was his brainchild, but he had me a part of helping put the class together and teaching the class. He also requested and brought me in as an arbitration advocacy facilitator. And I'm very grateful for those opportunities. Why Lou stayed on a year after, or those are questions that you would have to ask Lou. There was no part that I played, or I think anyone played, that pushed Lou out. It was his decision when he decided to retire, his and his alone. I have nothing but great respect and admiration for Lou. So no, I am not here as a result of any DEI. I am here as a result of 36 years of hard, faithful work to this union and to its members and to this letter carrier craft.
All right. I think you kind of answered this one, but let's go over it again. You started in 1988 at the USPS after serving with the Marines. How long were you in service? All your statements fluctuate from 22 to 26 years. And I think you already talked about that, but go ahead and answer that again.
Right. For any one of those that are veterans, know that when you sign up for the military, your contract you have what's called an obligation period. And out of that obligation period, you can choose to sign up for 3, 4, 5, 6 years. And generally speaking, at least when I signed up, the obligation period initially was for 6 years. I did 4 years of active duty initially. Got out while I was still under contract. I took terminal leave, and because my contract from 1983 to 1987, I had applied for the Postal Service and got hired on, and then went into inactive reserve for 2 years. Then I activated back onto selective Marine Corps reserves, which required me to attend monthly drills in 2 weeks during the summer training. And I remained in the selective Marine Corps reserves until I got activated on 3 different times for the Gulf War and enduring freedom. No, I did not go overseas into country, but I was activated as a result of the wars to active duty. And once I got activated, I spent in total with my initial 4 years of active duty service and the activation period of time, it took me to a total of close to 9.5 years of active duty time. And the remaining of my contract, there were another 2 years of inactive reserves, which means I'm still part of the reserves and can be called back up for war, but we're not mandated to attend monthly drills or go to training. And prior to those 2 years, or just as those 2 years were expiring, I re-enlisted into the SMCR, which is Selective Marine Corps Reserves, and completed my time in reserves. So out of my total time, I was in from April of 1983 to April of 2009. Did 22 years of actual active service and 4 years of inactive reserve time, which gives me a total of 26 years of contract with 22 years of active service.
All right. If you were a former Marine and Marines lead, why have you remained silent until after the convention?
Well, I don't know which one is more offensive, if I was a Marine or the DEI question.
Yeah. If you were a former Marine, so I guess they're questioning that now. So, and Marines
Yeah.
lead, why have you remained silent until after the convention?
Well, these things here are easily verifiable, but I did not remain silent till after the convention. I have been going around on my own dime to different branches around the country and speaking about what I feel is a need for change. However, what I have not done is disparage anyone, from President Renfro to any the detractors that have been out there that have been saying all manner of things. The truth has been distorted, been misrepresented, and it's not what you're called that makes you who you are, it's what you answer to. And I just did not want to answer to any negativity nor engage in the same kind of activity that's been directed at me. And you're talking about leading by example. How I've led by example is to be an example of an integrity. Despite being attacked, despite being lied upon, despite all manner of wrong that I believe has been stated about me and everything that's occurred, I've chosen to carry myself in a manner that's reflective of the leadership principles and characteristic traits that was instilled in me in the Marine Corps, and it was instilled in me by my parents. I'm the eldest out of 4 siblings. And the fact of the matter is that you are only accountable for how you treat others, not how people treat you. And so I didn't want to engage into the same activities that were leveled against me. I have spoken up in regards to having executive council meetings. I definitely voiced my opinion about how things should occur, what should occur, to the point, even if I had to stand alone, I would stand on what I believe. I am a firm believer that if you see something that is wrong and you don't stand up for what is right, you're as wrong as the wrongest self. And by virtue of me deciding to run for president of the NALC is the biggest stance and bullhorn that you could actually have of not being silent. The reality of it is that everything that is happening is things that I had anticipated because of standing up for what I believe in and what I believe is right. And there's a book that I read some years ago that was given to me by a good friend that's called Profiles of Courage. And my favorite quote of that book that was written by JFK is that the hottest spots of hell is reserved for those in a time of great moral crisis remain their neutrality. I could have remained neutral. I could have not placed my job in jeopardy, but this is not about preservation of a job for me. This is about my duty and responsibility and obligation to this union, to the letter carrier craft, not my being dutiful to any one individual. So no, I have not been tired. Have not been silent. My actions speaks louder than words.
All right, now here's one. I know it's going to come up because people will start sending me this decision, wanting you to explain it. And so this individual's addressing it. They were well prepared. So it says in 1990, you were caught facilitating cocaine to a confidential informant with OIG at your station and facilitated the sale of fake drugs. Multiple people at your office got removed, but you didn't. What deal did you make to keep your job?
First and foremost, let me declare my unequivocal innocence. And that is borne out with the fact that the notice of removal that was issued to me was resolved at step 2 of the grievance procedure, which is currently now formal A. And I did not facilitate any sale of any drugs to anyone. What occurred was the OIGs had planted a confidential informant at the Pomona post office that was being paid a bounty to make accusations against individuals. There were several, perhaps close to a dozen individuals that was caught up in this sting that the OIGs had set out. That included supervisors, clerks, and letter carriers. Majority of them were arrested. I was never arrested. The only thing that had transpired is that this individual that had come in there was consistently asking where could they buy drugs. I would repeatedly say, I do not know. Over the course of many months, because I do not, nor have I ever sold drugs. I do not participate or engage in any type of substance of any narcotic whatsoever. Not ever have I ever experimented with it. I don't drink. I don't smoke cigarettes. It's just not my thing. And all of that goes against my very nature. After the investigation was done, it was proven that I was completely innocent of what I was being accused of. And the 16-7 was the only thing that was left, and there was a dispute over the back pay that I was due. And we went to arbitration over that. And after my arbitration found and it was rescinded, the other Postal Service resolved a good deal of the other individuals that was caught up in that sting, resolved their case as well. But again, mine was resolved at step 2, which is Formal A now. At any time since then or prior to, had I not had discipline, the Marine Corps, had I been guilty of any of that, whether or not directly, indirectly, or conspiring of any of that, not only would I have been removed from the Postal Service, I would have been dishonorably discharged from the Marine Corps. And I grew up in South Central Los Angeles. And majority of that time in South Central Los Angeles, we moved to Compton. And I literally come from a neighborhood where they talk about snitches, get stitches. I didn't snitch on anybody because there was nothing to snitch on. I was not involved. And that is not something that is even in question. I remained a shop steward there in that office for the following 10 years until I got appointed the Step B representative for the Santa Ana district and ascended through the ranks of the union. There is no way that Branch 1100 would have allowed me to become a full-time officer if I was remotely involved. There is no way that I would have been at the regional NBA office had I been remotely guilty of any such conduct. In the Marine Corps, I take great pride in the fact that I received multiple good conduct medals. Those medals are not given automatic. They're earned. I received not 1, not 2, but 3 Navy and Marine Corps commendation medals that was issued to me by the Secretary of Defense due to my honorable service, my conduct, and meritorious work. So the bottom line is here is that the notion that this is some bombshell, that individual that posted that online, is just completely something that is of false news. Why? Because ever since I've become a representative of the NALC, I've shared privately and publicly my story as to why I was called to be a shop steward. If you look at my bio, when I got appointed as the NALC vice president, I speak about the fact that I was unjustly disciplined at the beginning of my career. During my trainings, I often talk about the unjust discipline that I received at the beginning of my career. And as a result of that, I prayed to the Lord that, Lord, you know I'm innocent. And if you restore me, I would do any and everything that I can to help those that are coming after me not go through what I've gone through. That I could be an instrument and tell them, hang in there. Because if you're innocent, justice will prevail. And in this instance, that's what occurred with me. And what happens is at this particular moment in my career, every time that I did along the way get tired, I remember that prayer that I prayed and hunkered down and did everything that I could to help someone. When I seen someone else willing to give up or ready to give up because they didn't understand how they got in the circumstances that they got into, and they declaring their innocence to me, that I need your help, whether it's from the grieving itself or the grieving spouse, I've always said, I know what you're going through. I've been there, done that, got the t-shirt. I know what it's like to be dependent on someone to do their job. And so this notion as if this is some bombshell, it's not. The fact of the matter is that I have been a dutiful, a respectful, devoted, committed NALC representative for over 35 years. And I'm exceedingly proud of that. And all of that has occurred between then and now, seemingly like it doesn't matter. But it does. Why? Because I can draw back on that and say, I know what it's like, and I'm here for you. And that's why I often like to end when I'm speaking to someone, not only will I fight for you, I will fight with you.
Well, y'all see why I call him the wolf? The wolf came out a little bit right there, my brother. All right.
Yeah.
Let's carry on. All right. He continues. What have you done personally for the letter carrier craft to benefit our work conditions or protect us in the last 3 years?
Well, I've been up at headquarters now for the last 2 years, a little over 2 years. Prior to that, as we have retreaded this over and again, that I have been a representative. And as a representative of the NBA office, a regional administrative assistant at that time, I was assigned to meet on and present cases in arbitration. Now, I have been in hundreds of arbitrations, whether I'm presenting cases or assisting and training someone to present cases. But the one that stand out the most recent, that we got a decision, what I think it was February, or just before I got appointed the NALC Vice President in 2022, is up in San Jose, California. Management was falsifying time records. And we're not talking about aesthetics where it made the time records appear as if the carriers were back in the office before 6 p.m., but they were getting paid the total hours that they were working. No, I'm talking about deleting clock rings for time spent working. They're to the tune of one letter carrier. Management over the course of 2 years has shaved off $17,000 in pay that carrier was due. There were over 800 letter carriers in the city of San Jose, California, and virtually every supervisor, virtually every manager, from the postmaster on down, but the ones that was managing them every day, virtually each and every one of them were deleting clock rings from 100 to full days. And there was no accountability being had. I was able to put that case forward, and to the tune of over $1 million some was paid out to these letter carriers for being essentially relegated to being indentured servants It had gotten so bad that justice needed to be done. It had gotten so bad that one letter carrier testified during the hearing that his wife wanted to leave him because she thought that he was cheating on her, because he was saying that he was working all these hours, but his paycheck wasn't reflecting the amount of hours that he in fact was working. So that's one instance of righting a wrong. And it wasn't just me in and of itself. I was at the end, the culmination of bringing it all together. But those officers and stewards that had brought forth that information did an outstanding job in allowing me to do my job to be able to bring some justice to those carriers. We had another case that just before I come up, where management had fired and had issued an emergency suspension to a letter carrier out in Las Vegas. This carrier was suffering from panic attacks, had FMLA, medical documentation on file with the Postal Service. And management conducted an investigative interview on this individual, and he had informed them that he was suffering from a panic attack and he needed to seek his medicine out of his vehicle. Management goes and placed a foot behind the door and refused to allow the carrier out. And when he insisted on leaving, they said, "We're going to put you on a 16-7 emergency suspension." He gets to his car. The one manager goes and stands behind the car. The other one grabs her vehicle and drives it behind him and refuses to allow him to leave. Medical services had to be called because of their behavior and placing this carrier in severe medical peril. And as a result of that, we were able to, with the joint statement of violence and behavior on the workplace grievance, get that supervisor banned from supervising letter carriers directly or indirectly, the letter carrier craft. That helped that particular, not only that particular carrier, but that craft, our craft, and that installation. In addition to that, since I've been up at headquarters, one of the very first things that I did in trying to aid our letter carriers, because of this inordinate amount of backlog with the dispute resolution process at step B and arbitration, I asked then President Rolando, could I put together a dispute resolution team task force to look at where the issues were and perhaps come up with some solutions in resolving the backlog that prevails nationwide. And one of the things that the task force did that I was heading up is that we rewrote the dispute resolution team, the DRT memo, and made management more accountable and to bring the jointness back into the process and to have triggers as it relates to when cases achieve a certain level, that there needs to be activation of the dispute resolution team members at all levels. And that dispute resolution team memo, after reviewed by Fred, gave his approval. Is somehow, I guess, up in the cloud right now somewhere. I don't know what has transpired to it. But the fact of the matter is that I believe that the dispute resolution team, the DIRT, is the backstop for the grievance procedure. What do I mean by that? That means that what comes to the dispute resolution team, they have an obligation to do their job, to one, write informative decisions that will disincentivize the parties at the local level for sending junk up to the DIRT. Not only disincentivize them from sending up junk, but to give them contractual guidance by writing informative, contractually sound grievances and making sure that they understand that the decisions that they make are going to be rendered upon the quality and the documentation of that file. If that occurs, how it assists with the NBA office is that cases that should not be appealed or impassed to the National Business Agent Office are decisioned there, which inherently reduces the amount of cases appealed. And the cases that are appealed are cases that are ripe for arbitration because they are legitimate disputes. And in addition to not only having the decisions of the dirt made based solely on the contract and the file itself, ensuring that there are the right people in those positions. When I came on, autonomy was a word that was used over and over again. It's one of the reasons why the dispute resolution team, the joint team, was at the district offices, to remove them away from the local branch presidents, to remove them from the postmasters, where undue influence would come into play. And so what I have done over the last 3 years, I said, is do arbitrations that directly affected the quality of work life for carriers on the floor, directly affected their pocketbooks for being done wrong, and also at the national level of doing everything that I could to ensure that justice delayed is not justice denied. Also, training letter carriers and shop stewards, branch presidents, to be more proficient in their job at the local level via the advanced formula and beyond class. Also, training warriors, dispute resolution team, not only dispute resolution team members, but arbitration advocates to be able to go out and fight the good fight and make sure that at the end of the day that we prevail. Those are just a tip of the iceberg of certain things that I have done over the last 3 years.
All right. When was the last time you physically carried mail and was actually on the workroom floor? And how do you propose to understand our day-to-day hardships?
Well, I'll answer you directly. The last time I carried mail was in 1998. How do I propose to understand your hardships? And when I was on workroom floor, one of the bylaws of Branch 1100, where I come from, required that every station in the branch, every unit, that a station visit is conducted every single month. And I was responsible for going out and conducting station visits. There's perhaps not been a day that I was a full-time officer that I did not visit the letter carriers on the workroom floor. Even as a resident officer, and I go out on detail, particularly if the time permits, and I'm there on a Sunday, I will often request to do a station visit, to keep my finger on the pulse, to be able to speak with the letter carriers directly, hear what they have to say. In addition to, as I previously stated, the hundreds of arbitration cases that I've been involved in and presenting, I have had in-depth conversation with shop stewards, letter carriers that I've interviewed for those cases, and branch presidents. And it's kept me abreast of what's going on out there. I am not uninformed or uneducated as to what is transpiring out there on the workroom floor. As I indicated to you here, is that I have been in the trenches. I am where I am because I earned to be here. This job was rewarded after 34 years, not awarded, as some people may have achieved positions.
That's a good one. All right, now we're going to get back into Facebook. That was all that one guy. So uh, you flipped that on him pretty good. All right, let's get back to Facebook. This individual says, what would you plan to do for the route adjustment process? How do you think it should be done?
The route adjustment process is something that's in flux. Certainly, we have to, again, as I stated earlier in this podcast, that have to be updated. There is changes that have occurred in the way business is done and how things should be done. Currently, right now, we're back at doing traditional route inspections. Far as what should be done, I think that's something that would have to have further discussion into and see what makes sense to get done. But I can tell you this for a fact, what I believe should not be done is any process that we enter into should not be devoid of being able to challenge any disagreements that we may have with that process.
All right. Who are you, Mr. Henry, and what strategies do you have to go after management the same way they go after us at the national level? Please and thank you.
Well, generally speaking, I believe that management should have the fear of God of the NALC. And what do I mean by that? That doesn't mean that they should be quivering in their boots, that kind of fear, but they should have the kind of fear of respect, that knowing that if you cross our craft or you don't honor your word, that there are consequences for it. And the one thing that I am a firm believer of is that we do not, nor should we, act out of the spirit of fear. Or what if we invoke our rights, or if we insist on being treated the way we're supposed to, if we insist on management keeping their word, to be fearful that if we were to invoke those principles, that they may not play nice with us in the sandbox. That is utterly ridiculous, because the membership is and should be our chief concern and our priority, not developing or coveting some rapport with management that is non-existent for the most part. I believe that you should cooperate, but we should not, under any circumstances, capitulate to management. And so the first and foremost thing that we need to do is invoke our rights and stand on it. We know what the contract says. And we know that if a letter carrier doesn't comply with the contract, they either get issued discipline or there are benefits that they're deprived of. I want to make sure that as a representative of this great union, that we hold the management accountable. And that is at the national level as well. Postal Service headquarters. There is no difference, in my view, than what occurs on a workroom floor and what occurs at Postal Service headquarters in some instances. Everyone is acting in their own best interest. And we, as a union, need to understand what side of the bread our butter on. That is where the letter carrier is at. That's where my loyalties lie. So invoking our rights, not being afraid to do so. If that means filing a national level grievance, then so be it. If that means having discussions that may be uncomfortable, so be it. But the reality of it is that people are requiring us to stand up and be accounted for, meaning the leadership. The leadership. And in that regard, I would lead by example. There's not one person that has known me any course of my career that can say that James Henry in any shape, form, or fashion is faint-hearted. That I will not make sure that what you got coming to you, that you don't at least, I can't guarantee you get everything that we're entitled to, but I can guarantee you this, it will not be due to lack of trying. So first and foremost, the most simplest word, that we need to fight for what's right, fight for what belongs to ours, and stop looking at things as if somehow we're being privileged versus what our entitlements are. We're entitled to be treated with dignity and respect. We're entitled to be rewarded for the hard work that we do as letter carriers. We're entitled to have an expectation that the contract will be followed. So setting that tone with the leaders at headquarters, the NBAs, which would then pass it down, and the presidents, and we all on one accord, that's how you effect change, when there's no break in the wall. Drag the net. Hold everybody accountable.
You preaching at you, brother. All right. I'm with you, man. I had my hands raised. All right. All right. Brother Henry.
Yes, sir.
What do you intend to do differently than your predecessors, particularly when it comes to contract negotiations?
Well, when it comes to contract negotiations here, and first and foremost, let me start by saying this here. Current contract here, I'm not the chief negotiator. That would be our current president. But should I, or if I was president, I would hold management accountable as it relates to the process. And what do I mean by that? Is that we need to have clear-cut understanding that at some point in time, there's a jumping off point, meaning that once the contract negotiations begin, that we would negotiate in earnest as frequently as possible. And that other officers would be informed and a part of that, so everyone can be informed as to what is going on, more than just generality. And I'm not talking about revealing strategies, but as to what we are looking for. But above all, ensuring that the process continues, and that when we get to the mediation stage, had we not come to a negotiated contract at that particular point in time, once that 60-day period for mediation has expired, that we start setting dates for arbitration. And there's nothing that prevents us, in my view at least, from continuing to negotiate and having an arbitration date. But should we still not have a contract by the end of that period, then we need to move forward. And it's not unprecedented because, believe it, when the last contract here that when Fred Rolando was in charge, we had set arbitration date. They actually had engaged in hearings while they were still negotiating. There's nothing wrong with continuing to negotiate, but we need the service to understand that it is not infinite, that they do not have an uninhibited amount of time to determine what it is that they're going to do. That's on us. We're accountable. It's just like a grievance. There's no excuse for a grievance to go untimely that you received in a timely manner. Why? Because we have the exclusive responsibility to move it along. It ain't based on whether or not you think you have some rapport with your manager. My experiences have been that, you know what? They can say all they want, that they had a meeting down at the district, things of that nature, and don't move that grievance the next day. Just as sure as I'm talking to you right now, they're going to call it untimely. And just as sure as I'm talking right now, the service are going to do what is in their best interest. So the biggest thing that it would do is boils down to two things. Is one, be a little bit more in depth with informing our membership and informing them, our craft, on a consistent and regular basis, not sporadic. Secondly, keeping the process moving and trying to maintain the time frames of the contract negotiations as it's laid out. So those are the two biggest things.
All right. Do you have any intention or plan to develop our bargaining agenda with consideration to membership input?
Well, absolutely. I mean, clearly there are concerns that the members have. I don't know how we would negotiate, meaning the NALC, any contract without having, some input from the membership, understanding what's important to them, understanding what's going on out there in the field. As of right now, you have letter carriers that speak above all, what's above and first and foremost in everybody's mind is the pay scale, the pay in and of itself that letter carriers receive. I come from California, born and raised in Los Angeles area, and out there right now, in and out burgers, fast food workers, they make $20 an hour. We have our craft, the CCAs at the lower end of our wage that don't make that. And what universe would a professional letter carrier have to contend with dogs and all kinds of weather-related conditions and the work environment as a whole, and being subjected to robberies and murder even, and not warrant more money than a fast food worker, with all due respect to them, but they don't encounter, or what's required of them is not what's required of a letter carrier. We're essential workers. That's what was deemed by the government. During the COVID, letter carriers was out there. Whether they wanted to be or not, we continue to carry mail. And so the wages is something that has to meet the here and now. Like I said here, I come from California. A one-bedroom apartment It's not unheard of or unusual, that is, for it to cost between $2,000 to $2,500 a month. Carrier may be bringing in a paycheck $1,700, and you're talking about costing $2,000 to $2,500 for rent. You're talking about paying on average maybe $500 for a car, and all the other requirements. You're talking about your utilities. It's not very much left out of a letter carrier's pay to be able to survive. Now, those at the top end of the scale, we do all right overall, but again, this is our craft. We should have one craft, one pace, and everyone should be able to have a living wage, not something that just they're just getting by on. And unfortunately, I believe that is the case right now. It used to be said back one of our collective bargaining negotiating periods, harder work, higher pay. Carriers deserve to be paid a living wage. And currently right now, in my estimate, we're at least $10 below that, at least per hour. And that is something that is just, in my view, unacceptable. And we need to make sure that our carriers are taken care of, and that wages that are at the forefront right now is something that is of real concern and merits real attention.
All right. Do you intend to keep the membership informed as to the state of negotiations and what our goals are?
Absolutely. That is something that is important. How is it that you're able to rally your troops, so to speak, and ask people to mount up? Should there be it necessary for you to get support in a position that the NALC taken without the membership being aware of what it is that we are seeking and the importance of it, and being made aware, as I stated earlier, on a frequent and consistent basis. That's not to reveal strategies, but to let them know. I recall when we were seeking level 6 and level 7, we said we were seeking level 6 and level 7 for our letter carriers. Fortunately, we were able to achieve that. You know, there's no secret as to what it is that we should be looking for, and that the membership should be made aware of that.
I agree. I think it's so silly. And I've said this a lot, but the amount of excuses we hear, the dumbest one that I hear, and it was said at the convention, was, we don't want management to know what we're asking for. And so I'm like, maybe at 500 days, if management doesn't know what we're asking for, we need a new negotiating team, because that's the dumbest excuse I've ever heard. Is we don't want y'all to, we can't have open bargaining. We can't tell you what's going on because management will know. And so,
you know what I call that, Corey? With all due respect, I call that inverted logic.
Yeah,
it's inverted logic. How is it? How can you achieve what it is that you are requesting if you had not made a request and they're not aware? So that's not. I can understand, and I'm wholly about not saying, "Hey, well, this is what we will accept. This is what our bottom line is," because you're not going to get no more than what they know that you'll accept. However, like I say, in my view, there's nothing wrong with revealing what it is that you're seeking.
Yeah. I mean, why is it such a secret? I mean, and I've always said this, James, is that the city letter carrier, we're very simple. We want to see you fight. That's all we want. We want to see you fight. And we know if you say, hey, this is what we're going in here, we're fighting for this. If we don't get it, you fought for us. That's the thing, is we want to know that you're fighting for us. Like you said earlier, I don't want to know the details of it, your game plan, the blueprint. That's none of our business. But regular updates, this is what we're looking at. This is what we're hoping for. This is what we're fighting for. That's all the carrier wants. If we don't get it in arbitration, at least my union fought for us. And I think that's the reason people are so upset now. We're in day 500 and we don't know what you're fighting for. We don't know what you presented. We don't get any updates. And it's kind of disheartening. So, it's refreshing to hear you say that.
Is it not only do we have a responsibility, I believe we have an obligation to those that rely upon us. I've said it over and over again. The best ability is dependability.
Yeah.
And the craft should be able to depend on their leadership for everything that they don't have access to in regards to information. They should be able to depend on us, not only with providing consistent and frequent information to the extent that we can, but also being forthright and truthful and honest with us. I have no problems at all someone saying, as to what you're saying, hey, this is what we tried to get, but they're not budget.
Yeah.
And hey, if we have to decide to go to arbitration, or that's not something that is of utmost importance, or we got something that offset that, so be it. But it should never be due to lack of trying. Ever.
Yeah. Well, I look at auto workers. I look at Teamsters. They're very public. As far as what they do, as far as negotiations. Of course, they have the ability to strike. I think somebody asked you that in just a second. But you look at the Postal Service, they are constantly putting out in the news, whether it's newspaper, the news, how much they've lost, how much money they're bleeding. This new plan he's come up with, talking about how much we've lost in the last 15 years, the amount of billions that they do a fantastic job of putting that in the public's mind. Postal Service is hurting. So here's the union over here, scared to come out and say, that's what we're asking for. I think somebody at National also said, we don't want to turn the public against us because we don't want them to know how much we make, which is also asinine. I think we do a terrible job, James, of not telling the public that putting the dirty laundry out there. Here's how much, and I'm going to talk about this Monday about something I heard Barner say, but here's how much the union, the Postal Service loses because they refuse to abide by the contract. And here's how much fat they have. Here's how many managers and supervisors they have compared to craft. It's a federal job, so it's one of it's top heavy, like no other company. We do a terrible job of making the public aware of. The Postal Service keeps saying they're losing all these billions. Here's part of the reason why. They're top heavy. They refuse to abide by the contract, so they're constantly losing money through that. We need some kind of oversight for people to come in here and get in our business and say, I don't know if you remember when who was the postmaster, Carvin Marvin came in and said, if you're not touching the mail, you need to be concerned about your job.
Right.
We need that type of oversight where people are saying, if you're not touching the mail right now and you are losing this many billions, we're not going to hold the carrier accountable. We're not going to hold the crafts accountable. If you are losing all these billions, let's get in your business and let's see why. And I just think the union does a terrible job. That's something completely different. But I just think we do a terrible job. The Postal Service is always out there saying how shitty we are. I think the union should get out there and say, here's part of the reason why that is.
Well,
And we
part of
don't.
that is, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that we just don't, and that it concerns me. I think that we should be out there, like you said earlier. It's perfect when you said, you know, we don't have to get in bed with management. There's
No,
no requirement to do that. You know, we're the union, we're the agent. Our job is not to protect the service. Our job is to protect the city letter carrier. And I think that we've lost that with this latest administration we have right now. Is that we're too concerned about protecting the service and not the carrier.
and to what I said, to your point here, is that our duty is to the letter carrier,
Yeah.
not to be dutiful to one individual.
Yep.
And the reality of it is that when it comes to compliance to what you were saying here, seemingly to me, the service is taking the attitude that failing to comply is equivalent to a waiter dropping a plate of dishes, just the cost of doing business. Well, if you drop too many dishes, well, guess what's going to happen? They're going to end up saying, this job maybe is not for you. Right?
Right. Yep.
You know, everybody understands a little bit. And so what am I saying here is that when you have this attitude that we're just going to do whatever we want to do and not even make a colorful appearance that you're even attempting to try and do the right thing. And yeah. and then what is the most popular term right now? Gaslight us into thinking that we're crazy for expecting you to do what you're supposed to do. And then some of us, I hate to say it, may not be politically correct, but unfortunately, it appears that sometimes we get the Stockholm syndrome. We get a little too oversympathetic for those that are doing us wrong.
Yeah. I've said that. I've said that a million times, James.
That is unacceptable.
Yeah.
And so if that's where you act, then maybe this isn't the job for you. If you feel that you're supposed to supplant your responsibility and obligation and duty to the letter carrier for the favor of someone that's acting in what is called self-serving manner, because that's exactly what it comes down to. The reality of it is that, like I said, we can cooperate. We can't sign anything on our own. We can't get anything done on our own. So cooperation is a necessity, but not where you capitulate, not when you sell your soul.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, sometimes we don't even recognize that we're selling our soul. And that's what I'm saying. You get the Stockholm syndrome, you know, and it's just one of those things whereby bringing it back to the center of the road, that we as representatives, whether you're at the local level or where I sit up here at headquarters, that we have one job, and that is to act in the interest of the letter carrier and not in preservation of a job or any prestige, to act in the interest of the letter carriers. As I've stated before, I'm not the union, Corey. You're not the union. None of the officers at headquarters is the union. Everybody that sits and works down there, 100 Indiana Northwest in Washington, D.C., that's just the building. The union is the letter carriers that's on that workroom floor. And that's what we call ourselves. Every branch number is preceded by the acronym of NALC, National Association of Letter Carriers. That is our brand, not the desire to have favor of those that are acting counter to our interests. And like I said, not even trying to make a colorful appearance that they're trying to work in our interest. And like I said, and in addition to that, is that we cannot be afraid to say no. Have a no-nonsense attitude. You don't have to be combative, but you have to understand that no is equally a viable answer as saying yes or something. You say yes when it benefits you, when it benefits this union, when it benefits the letter carriers. But there's a time to say no. Like I feel right now, we should be saying no. We should be saying no. We cannot continue on in this manner without having some end in sight. And if there is some end in sight as it relates to the contract, then simply let us know. Otherwise, it's just presumed that it's infinity and beyond.
Yeah, and I would never, and I know you're not one of those that's into dirty politics, and I know that. But you know, when I'm on the podcast, I say what I think, and so
Right.
and sometimes it's abrasive. But you know, I just wish that my president would quit telling a timetable. Don't say 2 weeks. You don't know that. You give false hope when you do that. He said 2 weeks. That's been 10 months ago. About 2 weeks. There's so many memes going on right now with his picture in this 2 weeks, and it's crossed out, and now we're down to hours. I know before the convention it was down to hours. That's what he's telling the executive council. You know, it's any hour now. Well, no, it's 2 weeks later, but you know, that's just something that don't do that. Don't say it's going to be two weeks or whatever. You know, if you're giving updates, like you said, we're going to give updates regularly, however that's going to be. I know back when Sombrado was there, they used to have a telephone number you could call, and it would give you updates just whenever. And but going back to what you were saying, you put the letter carrier first. I say this all the time. You put the letter carrier first, and you love the letter carrier, you're going to succeed, no matter what happens. Put us first. That's the reason it's called the National Association of Letter Carriers. Put us first. Love us. You're going to be successful. And we do not have that right now, and that's what's so upsetting. You talk about Stockholm syndrome, talking about appeasing those others. You know, I say it all the time. You know, labor is cleaning our clock right now at the national level with who they're going against. You know, their counterpart, and it upsets me. You know, to see that because, and I know you don't curse, but and I don't either, but sometimes so, that was a joke, and
I know.
so.
Yeah.
But I know you don't. But James, at the national level, and JB and I talk about this all the time. And I hate to take away from your questions. I'll get back to those in just a second. But JB and I talk about this all the time, and I know that you and I talk about this. Is that as the union at every level, whenever we go into the room, we're the baddest motherfuckers in there, and they need to understand that. The people that we go in against need to understand that the union's here now and we're the baddest motherfuckers in the room. But man, we have fallen so far from that over the last few years. We've become kind of a joke, and we have gotten to get back into that, uh, putting that, instilling that into our people that whatever setting we're in, whatever room we're in, we're the baddest motherfuckers in there. And so that's the reason you can't get in there fast enough for me, brother, because I know your heart. How you and I have talked numerous times about that. But anyway, that had nothing to do with any of those questions.
Well, let me share this with you here,
All right.
and I want this to make sure that we clear. You had made a statement about me not being one that engages in dirty politics. I do not. It goes against the absolute grain of everything that I believe in. I mean, as you know from these questions, and people have come on to your podcast and have said things about me that, in fact, was very disappointing. You know, a distortion of the truth and all kinds of other stuff. I really do hope that President Renfro is successful in negotiating not just a contract for the sake of negotiating one, but a successful contract. Why? because our letter carriers will benefit. This job is not about me. It's not about him. As I said, we're not the union. I'm just blessed to be in this position. I put my pants on one leg at a time like everybody else, right? But the success that befalls a letter carrier, a rising tide lifts all boats. So if we're able to get a contract, I don't wish him no ill whatsoever. We fundamentally are not aligned with values. We fundamentally don't have the synergy that we hope, as he indicated that. I had all kind of high hopes of coming in here to this position and being able to lend my talent and my decades of experience in aiding the advancement of the letter carrier. And whatever part that I can play. I know dispute resolution team, and I know arbitration, I know the contract like I know my name. And anyone that's been around me knows that. Unfortunately, I've not been able to be involved in that. But that doesn't make me wish any less the success of the NALC. It doesn't matter if he's the president and gets a good contract. This ain't no Trump and the border. I don't want a good bill because it's going to get the other side a win. So I don't roll like that. I don't wish him any ill because it will make him look good. I want him to succeed because if he succeeds, the letter carrier succeed. But there has to be changes in how, in my view, certain things are being done. And this is why I had no problem with declaring that I believe that I could make a difference. Why? Huh?
Go ahead.
You know, I don't look whatsoever for prestige. The only time that you have to be ashamed of anything and act under the cloak of darkness is when you are not right. When you're not trying to do right. My integrity would not allow me to go around and be acting in a manner that's inconsistent with the advancement of this union. You know, like I said, democracy isn't just when you agree with it. Every member, including myself, have a right to run for any office in this great organization. But there was a clarion call for me, a demand for action, because I sit here in the last 2 years and have observed certain things that I believe are in need of improvement. That in and of itself is not enough to make somebody run. But like I said here, fundamentally, we differ. And as such, I have an obligation, I believe, to stand up for what you believe in. And I'm thankful that when Fred, President Emeritus Rolando, had appointed me to be the NALC Vice President, Brian and I had good conversation about and shared, as he indicated at the convention, shared excitement about coming on. But there have been a sustained pattern of conduct that runs counter to everything that I believe and believe in, that I could just not align with, and that distorted our synergy. And as such, like I said, I wish no ill. No one can say that I went out and have been out saying anything corrupt about anyone on the executive board, despite all the bullet holes that I've sustained. But I have to remember, this isn't about me again. This is about bringing this vehicle back to the center of the road and advancing the causes of the letter carriers, and that the restoration of integrity, of all the things that are expected out of our leaders is about. I don't present myself, I'm not perfect, nor do I present myself to be at all. I have my faults just like anyone else. But what I do have is perfect intentions. What I do have is a pure heart. I intend to do right by my people in any and all circumstances. And like I said, I'll stand if I have to stand alone. And so, hey, all these questions, you think that at the convention, when some of the things that came up, that it was not uncomfortable? Sure it was. No one likes, they said, to be, cast in a favorable light. And no matter what I say on this podcast today, there are going to be those that are going to still have an opinion formed that isn't going to change. But what will change is that you can't say that, as some of the question was, that I was up in some corner. Because like I said, I have zero to be ashamed of from that arbitration decision that was posted to other documents of personal nature that was posted online. I have zero to be ashamed of, because I know, and everyone that's been with me through this journey for the last 36 years know what I'm all about. And I will continue to allow my work to speak for itself.
Brother, you won't have to stand alone. I promise you that. I'll be there with you, my man.
Appreciate you, brother.
All right, here we go. We're about running out of time, but I want to get to a few more.
Yeah.
Only reason that my thing won't download if it's too long, and so
Okay.
I don't want to lose any of this. So
forgive me.
No. I knew that it was going to be like this because those first few were personal. Do you have a plan or ideas for, and we've touched on this a little bit, for addressing issues of contractual non-compliance and for restoring teeth to our national agreement? And James, I'm going to say that non-compliance of grievance settlements probably is one of the top 3 issues that I hear about from across the country. So do you have a plan or ideas for addressing issues of contractual non-compliance and for restoring teeth to our national agreement?
Yeah. You remember when I said earlier that we need to have a standard or quality for our grievances? All right. My father used to say, you live your life by 2 standards, that which you are trying to obtain and that which you will not go beneath. That applies here as well. We should not be a tiger with no teeth and claws. First and foremost, the plan would be is that everybody is on one accord, meaning the headquarters and the MBAs, who also we disseminate the information to the branch presidents and the shop stewards and so on, about ensuring that what is most important. One of the things that I like to see happen occur, that I would try and implement here, is making sure that any settlements that we reach, that they're not neutered, that they're not labored down with the boilerplate language that's talking about without prejudice to either party, or this is non-citable, all of those things, other than at informal A or formal A where it could go either way, that we insist on having resolutions that have teeth into them, that have language that holds management accountable, and not giving up as the shop or giving away the store when we come to step B or pre-arbitration settlements, because otherwise, when we insert that language in there, and there's a reason why management want that language inserted, because for the most part, they know at step B that grievances contractually are precedent setting for the installation with their arose. Our position should be that pre-arbs should be precedent setting for the installation of arose. That's why they want to put that in there to neuter it. Otherwise, the grievances are, the settlements aren't worth the paper that they're written on, as far as I'm concerned.
Amen.
And so one thing that we need to do, in that, to answer your question, is ensure that we have documents by way of settlements that are enforceable. And that not only are they enforceable, that we're willing to cut off the finger to save the hand. What do I mean by that? That if we can't get what we should get at the lower steps, don't be afraid to move it up to the next level. Because after a while, that tide is going to roll in with regards to arbitration after arbitration if we have a legitimate case. Yep. So we have to change our mindset. When you're talking about a paradigm shift, and not be so concerned on just the right here and now. You know, if you're going to feed your kid, they may not like the fact that they got to eat vegetables all the time, but you know that if you give them candy all the time, they're going to end up rotten teeth. And so if you always settle grievances just to get the money and don't have the languages, guess what? You end up having a rotten tooth because you don't have anything that you can enforce henceforth and forevermore. So changing the mindset, and that comes from the top down.
Thank you. I've been preaching that a long time, brother. It drives me crazy. You know, to me, James, and it's nothing against y'all at National for the most part, but the biggest problem with non-compliance right now is the union.
We become complicit in it.
It's unbelievable. We're the biggest problem for non-compliance, whether it's these pre-arb sessions that are giving grievances away for pennies on the dollar. That's all by design for management. They control everything right now with the grievance procedure. We're the ones who are the moving party, but they control everything. The backlog, they do that. That's on purpose. This is how I feel. They do that on purpose, knowing they're going to get into these pre-arb sessions. They're going to do away with thousands of grievances for pennies on the dollar. You got these, like you just stated, these pre-arbs with watered down language that I can't use. That's by design. The system is bogged down right now. That's by design. And we're just over here, you know, just wringing our hands like, woe is me. That's what I talk about. We need to be the baddest motherfuckers in the room. We have let management start dictating to us our grievance procedure and how things are moved. And
you tell me why wouldn't we, if it warrants it? Because every single grievance does not necessarily warrant it, but if it warrants it, meaning through repetitive violation or something that is egregious, done, willful, or deliberate, right? Why would we not insist on a cease and desist? It seems to me that management has a greater sense of appreciation for those three words than we do. They know how powerful that is. What does cease and desist mean, Corey? It means to stop, don't do it no more.
Right.
That's what it means. And so when you have a settlement to that degree and you go forward on that, the money will come.
Yeah.
But when you can show that, look here, they agreed that they will stop and don't do it no more. But this goes back to, again, this broken dish syndrome, that just the cost of, like a restaurant, just the cost of doing business. Well, this is just the cost of doing business at the post office. We know we're going to violate the contract. So it's almost to their attitude towards the union right now. It's almost, so just, why don't you just accept it? Why don't you just breathe? Just accept it. You know, and we know that you know that we know you know.
Yeah.
that this is going to happen. So you want to just stop resisting. Well,
Yeah.
no. My attitude is the more they persist, the more we should resist.
Yeah. Yeah. I did a case and I've talked about this, I believe, in Lake Charles. AJ Bro, who was the president down there, he still is, but he fantastic guy and understands the grievance procedure, how to build case files. But management's position was, what is a cease and desist? Article 8 violations will always happen. So what is a cease and desist? That's their mindset. And in arbitration, you've done many more than I have. When they say the union is only looking for a windfall, that's all this remedy is. They want, they got all these cease and desist. Now they want this money. It's just a windfall. And I'll always say the same thing. It's 100% up to you.
It
It's
is too.
It's 100% in your court.
Hey, Corey, it's in their name.
Yeah.
Management, right? What's in their name? Management.
Yeah.
Manage. What is it? Too much for you to actually manage yourself?
Yeah.
Manage yourself.
They would rather, of course, they got us duped right now with the cease and desist with people we've got in there right now. Rather than educate their people on compliance, whatever it is, clock rings, Article 8, rather than spend all their money educating their people, they will spend all of their money trying to get us out of doing a cease and desist because they know that they're too damn stupid to educate themselves.
You know what I think? You know what I call the $25, $50, $100, whatever? I've shared this in my classes that I teach. Management is more apt to give you the $25 and $50 or $100, whatever the dollar amount may be, than agree to instructional resolution and to agree to cease and desist.
Yeah.
It's a ransom. They essentially are buying us off because guess what? Then the union wonders why what I style as experiencing contractual Groundhog Day. Why you continue to live this same day or this same violation over and over again? Because again, you have no enforceable settlements. And you're good for the instant gratification of going to being able to tell, a member or otherwise, oh, I got you $25, I got you $50, I got you $100. Well, guess what? In actuality, they want what happened to them not to happen again.
That's it.
If I need this weekend off, I don't need you to get me $100 because I was denied my leave. Guess what? I had a graduation to go to. I had a wedding to go to. I needed that to happen then, not now. So we need to, like I said, be on one accord, the union as a whole, nationwide, nationally, locally, as to what our standards are and enforce the standards upon ourselves to understand that if I can't get what I need to get now, don't be afraid to go further and go farther. It may cause some issues with regards to a little disappointment with your counterpart for right then and there. But once they understand what your standards are, they're either going to get on board or they're going to leave it alone. And because they're going to know that we're going to arbitration if necessary.
Yeah, we have to weaponize arbitration again. We've come so far from that. I loved what you said earlier about, from national all the way down to the steward. On certain things, we have to all be nationally on the same page, whether it's through national templates, this hour office time. I've seen nothing from anybody about that. These stationary events, I've seen nothing from anybody on that. Those things are nationally, we should have gotten together and said, here's how we're going to combat that. It's our office time. Here's how we're going to combat the stationary events and activity events. As a union, here's what we're going to give y'all nationally to combat those things. Not everything's nationally. Certain things are regional, that they do region wide, and it doesn't apply to everybody else. But certain things go on nationally, where nationally we need to address them. Non-compliance is one thing that we should address nationally. Everybody should be on the same page as far as non-compliance. The union should say, here's our position on non-compliance. Here's what we're going to do, and here's what we're not going to do. And our office time, that's nationally. The stationary events, because of these memos, giving them the opportunity to watch us. And a lot of people were asking questions about that. Giving them an opportunity to watch us. That's a national issue. And so I loved what you was talking about earlier, is that when you get in there, we're going to have those things nationally, we're going to address. And so we're missing that right now.
No, you're absolutely right. I give you an example. M number 1968, I like to refer to it, my old friend, Lynn Nor, you say carriers without borders, right? It is something that, we spend seemingly more time chasing than it being more automatic of management doing everything that they're supposed to do. And we have to see things for how they are and not necessarily the way that we want them to be. The reality of it is non-compliance is a cancer in the Postal Service. And like I said, under the best circumstances and best intentions, sometimes things happen where you just can't get everything done the way that it should be done. But it should not be the prevailing factor. It should not be the norm. And that's where we add it in. It makes us as a union look ineffective when the carrier is saying, what's the point? Why am I paying you dues if I have to work beyond 12 hours a day, 60 hours a week? What's the point if I have to be disciplined and this is happening on a regular basis with me and is constantly getting rescinded? Clearly there was no just cause, that there's some underlying issue. What's the point of me having to place my life in jeopardy when I deliver mail and my safety is not given the priority that it should be given? These are the things, because what does Article 14, Section 2 talk about? That the Postal Service is supposed to work with us, meaning the union, cooperatively, to make sure that we provide a safe working environment, right? And these are the things that carriers are frustrated by, and rightfully so, that the union, in some instances, in their view, can look ineffective because we know what's going on, and they said, what are you doing about it? What are you doing about it? Well, one thing that you can do about it, like I said here, is just bite the bullet and not resolve grievances just for the sake of resolving them. Get these arbitration decisions that are final and binding. Don't be afraid to have those cases go forward when they warrant to go forward. Because guess what? When you don't do that, then that's when you get all the junk that comes up that fills the space for cases that have real merit that should be there. When you have someone else's case being scheduled because of the backlog that we have there in the arbitration system, that aren't cases, that majority of them aren't even going to arbitration. They're getting, like I said, pre-arb. Well, if we have a legitimate issue, then we should be going forward. That's my view.
Yeah. All right, just a couple more, my man, and I'm gonna have to get off of here because I don't want to screw myself up. But
yeah,
I like this one here. With all the With all the dues money National collects, why in the hell are we so reliant on a podcast from an off the clock carrier for news, information, and education?
Well, as I indicated to you earlier, should I ascend to the presidency position, we will reestablish a director of education. And there's one thing that you've demonstrated that you have a great aptitude at UNJB, and along with others that I know of, sufficiently educating our carriers at a high level. And this is something that needs to be instituted, on a wider basis. Now, granted, the NALC has some good educational programs, but the format in which it's been reached, that you're able to reach by your format, is something that may need to be taken into account earlier, like someone was saying about placing things online, so we can have a greater reach, because there are some good education going on, but everyone is not aware of it, or I'm saying not everyone is aware of it. And so, but we do need to do a better job of getting the word out and reaching everyone that desires to be educated.
Here's the last one for this episode here. And it's one of the ones that's I've raised the most hell about, James. And it says, why do you feel our national level didn't have a coordinated response to hip falsification and failed to address this nationwide issue through a national grievance, and failed to bring media attention to the mistreatment of letter carriers in inclement summer weather?
Well, let me put it to you this way here, is that as it relates to the grievance procedure, any grievance that goes to national for arbitration, that is determined by the national president. So I could speculate, but he has not articulated to me or anyone else, that, or at least not to me, that as to why there was no coordinated effort, or why things didn't happen as expected by some members out in the field. That would be a question better suited for asking President Renfro.
Well, I think, well, I know he doesn't support a national level grievance. He's been asked that at the COPs, and said that they were afraid of a national level grievance. First, I would never be afraid of a grievance. We moved to grievance. And so I think that we have some very great minds that could have put a grievance together for that. I talked about my displeasure with that over and over and over again, about his inability or unwillingness to go after management for that. I don't know if you saw the letter from Congress that they wrote, where they're talking about the falsification of it. And to me, they did a better job than we did, and that's embarrassing. But on that last part, the national grievance failed to bring media attention to the mistreatment of letter carriers in inclement summer weather. As a president, when you become president, are you going to be afraid to take things to the national media about the concerns of the city letter carrier if it's fitting to do so?
If it's fitting to do so, no.
So you would have no issue going to the media about letter carriers' concerns?
If it warrants it, no. If it's
Okay.
detrimental to us, that is something that would have to be determined on a case-by-case basis. Nothing is off the table when it comes to represent our letter carrier. If it's to our advancement, then I'm all in.
All right. I'm gonna have to do some from Reddit, because he's the one who got on me, because I didn't get into his. I hadn't got any of his on this episode, so I'm gonna give just a few from Reddit, and then I'll be done. All right.
Yes, sir.
Okay, then you can go to bed. It's past midnight here.
Okay. Sorry about that, man.
No, you're fine, brother. You're fine. What can
What
be
time?
done to, huh?
What time? Oh, I'm gonna say, what time is it?
It's midnight here.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
All right. What can be done to get more members to vote? Last election, only 15% voted, and that was pathetic.
Well, the first and foremost is that, as you indicated, that there was 15% that voted, and I am wholeheartedly in agreement. That is just unacceptable for a organization that has over 250,000 active and retired members. Members are feeling disaffected because they don't feel a part of the union. And part of that is what we've been talking about repeatedly, about not being, in their view, sufficiently informed and brought into the loop of what's going on, and feeling as if no matter what they say or do, that it will not be taken into consideration. That would be not the case when it comes to me. I would ensure that the membership is informed, again, consistently and frequently and sufficiently, and that they're brought in, that their concerns are factored into all the decisions that we make. And so when you feeling disaffected and feeling as if there's a privilege group and you're on the working floor and nobody feels your pain, then it builds apathy. People don't want to be involved and participate. As I said, here's one of the reasons why I share my story about how I was unjustly disciplined, because I can relate directly to the workroom floor and letter carriers. And so being able to let them know that we are just like you, that we understand and we're a part of you and you're a part of us. We're one union, and the injury to one is the injury to all. Conveying that message, not only in words, but in deeds, I believe would help aid in getting people more involved and willing to vote, particularly when they can see that they were part of effectuating change.
Yeah, I said and shortly after the last vote, it was disinterest.
Yes.
Is what 15% is disinterest. I mean, nobody cares, and so it's hard to complain about what's going on right now. With only 15% engaging in the vote, and so yeah. All right, how can you make sure the vote is on the up and up?
Well, votes being on the up and up here is something that is obviously of the utmost importance. There is systems of checks and balances that that require attention to the voting, and with that being said, I have full confidence that we will have votes that's on the up and up. But that is something that would be done as we have generally an election committee and people that are disinterested or is involved, that ensure that the integrity of the vote is upheld.
All right. What will be your first act as our new NALC president?
Well, my first act is one to, should there be a fraction, to unify the officers, the MBAs, and get us all on one accord and put whatever has transpired behind us, because we cannot service you. As the Bible says, a house divided against itself cannot stand. So first and foremost, for us to be able to advance the agenda and making sure that carriers, the letter carrier gets the proper representation that they deserve or are entitled to, we have to be on one accord and move forward. And then we need to make sure that management at all levels are aware that we're on one accord and that we're moving forward with no other agenda than to make sure that our carriers are represented and their interest is first.
All right, here's two questions. I'm going to combine them into one. It's from two different people, but it's kind of on the same thing, talking about the charges. Why did you not get to speak on the charges at the convention? If you would have, the outcome might have been different. And what are your thoughts on the outcome of the charges at the Boston convention?
Well, thank you for that question. First and foremost reason as to why I didn't speak on the charges, it wasn't because I didn't desire to or had anything to say. It's because the rules did not permit for anyone other than the charged and the charging party to speak on the charges. My thoughts on the charges are that the membership spoke and accept the will of the membership. But in particular, there was a charge that involved me, where there were false allegations made about me by President Renfro. He indicated that the reason that he stated what he said about me allegedly grabbing women's behind and rubbing on it is he was seeking advice. Well, that was countered by the fact that you have our former president, Rolando, EVP Barner, and others that said that he wasn't seeking advice, that he made the allegation. And this is what Chris has stated at the convention. It's important for everyone to know that the alleged individuals are supposed to be that supposedly made the allegations to him were and are two personal assistants of the president. Prior to that, I had never had any issue or complaints or concern from anyone. I asked, was there any complaints made to HR? And it was confirmed that there was no complaints made to HR. Allegedly, the incident related to me had occurred back in January during an executive council meeting in Marietta, where at the time I had my wife with me at the time. And the rumors circulated, and I found out in April of 2023. Once I found out, I requested to speak with President Renfro. I went up to his office on a couple of occasions. He wasn't there. And then I sent emails, and he had committed on multiple occasions to meet with me and failed to do so, to the point where he stopped communicating at all. And I was ghosted. I then insisted through Paul Barner, the EVP, that an executive board meeting be called to address the concerns and that an investigation be launched. An investigation was launched by HR. It was reported to that special executive council meeting that I requested because I had nothing to fear. There was no incidental contact, no anything whatsoever. That the investigation by HR revealed and reported that the allegations did not match the facts, that there was no merit. And then Brother Chris Jackson is the one that ended up filing charges. To this very day, the president had not ever took the time to ask me if anything had happened and to seek my side of the story. And what made me so incensed about that is that the duty of fairness, or the obligation or the right to face your accused, or to be fair, his obligation, his duty, was not accorded me. He never asked me whatsoever what happened. He went and talked to 7 or 8 different individuals, and at least half of those testified that it was allegations that he was made. It has caused irreparable harm because as a result of some of these questions that were sent and defaming me on social media, a lot of that is a direct stem from those allegations. Because people will ask, well, why would a president make or say something that's not true? Well, why is it that some police officers don't protect and serve? Why, to some judges, isn't justice blind? Everyone don't always do what they're supposed to do, even though they have an obligation to do so. And at the convention, President Renfro states that essentially there's no need to apologize. He can show through his actions. Well, his actions has been devoid of any contrition whatsoever as it relates to those false allegations against me. And let me state unequivocally, I was 100% and still 100% innocent of any of those allegations. And what allegedly the 2 individuals testified during the hearing did not coincide with the allegations. And their interactions with me prior to me asking for the investigation was not consistent with having any problems with me. In fact, Ken Raker of our HR, once the Weir report came out, he said that not only did they not ever make a report to HR, there has never been any report ever by anyone related to me. And out of my 36 years of representing letter carriers, I've had hundreds, even thousands of instances, or hundreds of instances, let me say, that where I have personal interaction with both male and female. So, and never, ever had there ever been any issue whatsoever, any allegation whatsoever. And the same thing in the Marine Corps. I was responsible for an entire unit of male and female Marines, responsible for both male and female shop stewards, trainings that I've done. No one has ever stated that I've done anything inappropriate to say or done anything inappropriate to anyone. And so it has been very, very traumatizing because my work environment has become basically a room of radioactivity that I have to, treat everyone as if there's going to be something perceived incorrectly. But he never talked to me. And I would love to have had the opportunity to have addressed that at the convention, and that was not part of the rules. Secondly, he stands on at the mic and makes the allegation that the reason my duties were taken away from me is because I made a decision that the NALC is still dealing with today. And similarly to those false allegations of misconduct, he never talked to me. I received an email from him around June or July of last year, just saying per Article 9 of the Constitution, I'm removing your duties from you. He never talked to me, never expressed any discontent with work performance or anything whatsoever. And to this day, he still has yet to tell me what it is. I was informed by those that was in the hearing that it was allegedly behind a email that I had communicated with Postal Service headquarters regarding the elevation of a arbitration case from expedited to regular panel, because the service was arguing that the union had to have concurrence from the service to elevate a case from expedited to regular panel. I had received a call from Region 2 about that to see if we can get anything done about it. I reached out to Jennifer Breslin of the Postal Service, and we had discussion. And she sent me an email on June 14, 2023. In that discussion, and in her email, specifically it says, "Thank you for speaking with me just now. As promised, I am sending the email to confirm our discussion. Mutual agreement is not required to refer matter from expedited to the regular panel per MOU and Article 15.4.C.2. Either party may refer a matter from the expedited panel to the regular panel per MOU and 15.4.C.2. Then she goes on to say, if a party refers a case expedited to regular panel per MOU and 15.4C2, the other party has the right to argue arbitrability and assert that the matter is not complex or significant and is not properly heard by the expedited panel." Now, I did not make any agreement, as she says here, mutual agreement is not required. She says, "Thank you," and confirming our discussion. We had a discussion about it. And in my discussion, and Corey, you do arbitration, the argument of arbitrability can be raised at the doorsteps of arbitration.
Right.
And in my discussion, is that not correct?
Yep.
I told her that I disagree, that the only way we can elevate expedited case to regular panel is if it's complex or significant, but they have the right to argue arbitrability all they want. Doesn't make it a sound, just, or correct argument. And Region 2 had, when they saw the email that I sent over, the one I just read to you, had taken exception to that latter part. I'm not in disagreement that that's not in the contract, but the other portion is virtually what the contract requires. If in fact this is what he took my duties over, one, he never stated that to me. Two, if he wanted to be fair and express whatever concerns that he may have, then he could have given some guidance, opposed to just saying, "I'm going to take your duties completely away." Not only did he take my duties away, he took Chris Jackson's duties away for whatever those reasons were. But the reality of it is here is that this, even if this was the case, even if that was the case, I've done thousands of decisions at both from informal A, formal A, step B, pre-arbs, and gotten arbitration decisions. And very seldom has anybody complained about any of the decisions that I've rendered. There was a reason that I was appointed this position. Not only with my tenure, but my level of experience in dealing with these issues. This is straightforward. This is out of the contract. And I don't understand, if in fact that was the case, how is it that the president then would ask for grace in any circumstances that he's dealing with and not accord the same to people that work for him? But this was contractually sound. As you attested to or confirmed, arbitrability, manager can raise an argument. Doesn't mean we agree with it. But
and we can't stop them from doing it.
No, but the Postal Service got an email here. Postal Service says, per our discussion, there is no M number, there is no decision, there is nothing other than this email that she says you are basically right. There's not a requirement to refer a matter from, doesn't require mutual agreement to refer a case from an expedited to a regular panel. So if that's the reason, as from my understanding was testified during the charges, that's a lot to be desired. So want to make sure that everyone understands. Again, I'm not ashamed of anything because I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't do anything at all, nor was I given an opportunity to even have a discussion to this very day with the president on any matters related to my duties being taken away and those false allegations. So want to say that, say it now. Last time I address it, I move on. The membership has spoken, and I accept the will of the membership.
He did say when he was addressing the charges that he couldn't talk to you because the charges are filed. He couldn't have a conversation with you, but he would be having a conversation with you after the convention. So have y'all had that conversation yet?
No.
Okay.
And the thing is that that's I don't know, that's a little disingenuous because supposedly he received reports on least charges related to me back in January of 23. Between January and 23 and April of 23, he was there. He could have spoke to me. He was there when I requested to speak to him on multiple occasions. And then even since he's been back, our first executive board meeting in person, I still asked to speak to him. And it has not occurred. So there's been ample opportunity. But the reality of it is, it's really neither here nor there now because it's closed, but I wanted to make sure that I declare my unequivocal innocence and that everyone has everything in proper context.
I hate to tell you this, but I don't think he's going to talk to you.
Yeah, that's okay. Because you know
I just have a sneaking suspicion that conversation's not going to happen, my brother.
Well, let me end on this here. What the membership can expect from me is to run through the tape. I will give my very best, my all in all, 100% of the time until I cannot give anything else. The Marine Corps used to teach us it's okay to give out, but not to give up. So to all the haters, for whatever reason, I pray for you. I've done nothing to any of the ones that sent these questions in and some of the other things that I've seen and are aware that was said about me. That's okay. Because guess what? I know a man that was completely innocent and was accused of all manner of things, and they nailed him to the cross. And so I am going to stand. I will not give up in my fight for the letter carriers and in my pursuit of making sure that our union is what it espouses to be. And that is that of representation of the highest order to our membership and one of the highest integrity. I am here, will be here until the membership says no.
Here's the last one, and I'm going to let you go. And it's fitting because it's pretty good. What plans do you have to unite the rank and file members of the NALC?
To mobilize and unite the NALC is to let them know, what did I say earlier, Corey? That the best ability is dependability, right?
Yeah.
That I will convey and I will demonstrate to the membership that they have a leader that they can depend on.
Mm.
That is the common thread of unity, is the confidence in one another that we are brothers and sisters in this fight together, and that you can depend on me in any and all instances. And not only can you depend on me, but you can depend on all the other leaders and that are in this organization that is responsible for their well-being and responsible for their representation, because holding those accountable for being responsible for their duties, that's what I would do.
Well, my brother, almost 3 hours. I hope I got the last part of that, but
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see, my man. My brother, I love you, my man. I appreciate everything you do and everything you've done and everything you're going to do. I'm honored to be running with you on this ticket, and we're going to have you back on. We'll pick another date because we got about 200 more questions to answer.
Right.
But it's 12:30 here, my man. I'm going to bed. I'm old. Hell, I feel like I'm back in high school again.
Man, I feel like Sandman is drop kicking me myself.
My
So
brother James, the Wolf. I appreciate you, my man. You have a good rest of the weekend, baby, and I'll talk to you again soon. All right.
hey man, I appreciate it. Thank you so very much.